How you can build wealth through property. Hello, my name's Mark Fitzgerald and it's fantastic to have you joining me here at the Property Unleashed. So in this episode today, I am going to talk about how you can build wealth through property. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this and not everybody understands them all completely. So we've got 7 methods that I'm going to go through with you today, or 7 systems, should I say, more to the point, to make sure you're on the right track when setting out to be a successful property investor. Some people get into property because they want to remove the job. They want to get out of the day job. They want to get out of the 9 to 5 slog and have more time freedom. That's great. Other people actually do enjoy their jobs. And that is phenomenal as well, but they just want a handful of properties that they can have as a nest egg to potentially bring them in that extra income, in which case then if you do happen to lose your job, you've got something there to fall back on. You've also got a pot that you're building up for your retirement. And let's face it, at the end of the day, we all need to start doing stuff like that sooner rather than later. Now, I built a property management company, as I call it, through the rent-to-rent strategy with HMOs, and we do a bit of serviced accommodation now as well for good measure. But I have built up the cash flow that replaced my corporate job, that got me out of the 9 to 5 slog and has given me time freedom. I've also managed to put systems in place to be able to systemize the business in such a manner that it doesn't take up all of my time as well. A lot of people get concerned if they're doing, creative strategies like rent to rent, that they're going to get caught up in the day-to-day. And of course, initially, you will get caught up in the day-to-day. You'll learn it, then you can systemize it, and then, of course, you can employ people to do the things that you don't want to do. And that is what we do here now. That is also what I show my students how to do on the Rent-to-Rent Business Builder, of course, as well. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 1, you need to make sure that you understand the market. You understand the strategy that you want to unleash to the world. If you're looking at starting a rent-to-rent business, what property types are you looking for? What kind of clients or tenants or potential holiday makers are you going to be marketing to? And knowing their trends as well. The time of the year that you're going to be looking at marketing the most, when it's going to be a bit quieter, and those sort of things. Of course, if you're looking at buying property and flipping it, which is where you buy a property, you add value, i.e. a refurb or an extra room, or you change it in some way, or just give it a general uplift to sell on and give yourself a nice chunk of money, you need to make sure that the market isn't dipping. It needs to be a rising market to help you with that. Now, you can do this in a falling market, but also you run the risk of getting downvalued. So you need to be very, very careful and know what the sort of trends are in your area. Now, if you can buy a property or get hold of a property, particularly below market value, you put yourself in a very, very strong position, because that equity of profit that you want, you've already got when you bought the property. And a lot of the times it's said that you make your money, or you can make the most money in property when you're buying the property, when you're doing the deal. The back end of it is always great, and it's something that we want to be looking for when we get there to make our profits up, but we don't always see that at the very beginning. And sometimes we just want to get hold of property to do what we're going to do to it and then rent it out and get the monthly cash flow. Obviously, property prices are dictated to, a lot of the time, by the economy, by what's happening, by outside sort of sources that we can't control. Yes, we can add value to property, but long-term growth is where it's at, and it really is about trying to keep hold of properties for as long as you possibly can, okay? So make sure that you've gone out there, or you do your research in your area for the strategy that you're doing. Number 2, try and diversify your portfolio as best you can. Don't have all your eggs in one basket, as the old saying goes. You need to diversify your portfolio. So if I take my own portfolio for argument's sake, and I will, I have diversified it in the fact that I started doing rent-to-rent property management. I don't get to own the properties, but I do take the cash flow from them and also make sure that the landlords get a very good cash flow as well. But I started with HMOs. Then I changed it and I still have the HMOs, but I have serviced accommodation units as well, which we manage, and we have rent-to-rent on. Okay. Now I'm buying my own portfolio. I'm buying buy-to-lets, but I'm actually letting those as serviced accommodation units. And we also now do developments. So I am involved with property investors who do developments. I also speak to the investors. I bring the two together, and we are looking at growing the portfolio through joint ventures as well. So I always look at my property investing as a bucket. And I like to have as many little taps pouring a bit of money into that bucket each and every month from all of these different taps, from all of these different methods. And at the end of the day, if one of those taps stops, then I've still got the other ones putting that flow of money into them. So you need to diversify. You can't do that in the beginning, or you can't always do that in the beginning. So I would say don't try and do everything. To start with, you know, I've been doing this a while now. Make sure you start with one strategy, with one way of doing things. If it is rent to rent that you're starting with, and if you're following me, you probably are into a bit of rent to rent, then if it's HMOs, go for it 100% with the HMOs. If it's serviced accommodation, go for it 100% with the serviced accommodation. The caveat to that, here in 2023, the government are going to bring in some restrictions or some new rules when it comes to serviced accommodation. We don't know 100% what that's going to be just yet, so just be careful if you're looking at getting out there and putting all your eggs into the serviced accommodation. We just don't know what the legislations will be just yet. Now, it's nothing to be fearful of. The amateurs will be fearful. We will look at the legislation that is put out there and we will work within those barriers. Why? Because we're property professionals and that's the way we set ourselves up. So make sure you've got a bit of diversification as you grow your portfolio up to cover yourself, to make sure that you're in a good position. Number 3, make sure if you are investing at all, you invest in quality properties, because quality properties attract better clients, better tenants, and they appreciate better as well. So if you're not looking at buying, but you're looking at doing rent to rent, as we will basically look at both of these as we're going through, you want to be getting hold of good quality product. So you don't want to be looking at the old 10-year-ago method of a 4-bedroom house, potentially with a room downstairs, an extra room you can just chuck a bed in, as the old saying goes, and you've got a 5-bed HMO. Forget that, okay? We want to be the property professional. You want to be looking for good quality HMOs, okay? I have never paid for a deposit and I've never paid for a refurbishment on any of the properties that I've taken on. I have put a few £100s into the properties, dressing rooms, bit of paint here, few carpets changed here, but I've never had to do a massive refurb. I've never had to, on an HMO, put in all the furniture and everything as well. And to be quite honest with you, it doesn't make good business sense to be doing stuff like that. I look for quality properties where the landlords are quite happy to put a level of investment in themselves, and I will maintain it to that level. And you should do the same too. And if you're out there looking for properties to buy as well, look for properties that you can add value to. We always say go out there and look for motivated sellers, people who have a problem that potentially need to sell quickly, that need to get out of the deal quickly, and we can go in there and help them. But if the market is slowing down and going down, you will probably see a lot more motivated sellers than you would in a rising market where everybody's trying to snap it up quickly. So just make sure, if that is the case, that you're looking for good quality properties in good areas that will hold their value, so that as property prices do go up in the future, you're going to get maximum potential from that. At number 4, you want to make sure you maximize leverage in the deals that you're doing. Property is a fantastic industry to be into for leverage, i.e. mortgages. You don't ever want to be buying properties for straight out cash unless you're going to turn them around, because why would you want to put all your money into one property outright when potentially using mortgages, you could buy 4 or 5 properties by just having a 25% deposit. Okay, so don't just think, well, I've got all the money, I could buy that outright. You want to be looking, if you can do that, to buy 4 or 5 properties with mortgages on. Leverage other people's money. You can do this with investors, you can do this with bridging finance, you can do this, of course, with mortgages, with banks, with lenders. Leverage other people's money as much as possible. And of course, by doing so, you'll be able to bring in more cash flow a hell of a lot quicker. So make sure that you are leveraging people's money, that you are leveraging your property investing. I do the same with rent to rent. How do I do the same leveraging when I'm not buying? I only look for properties that I don't have to spend any money on, in which case I'm leveraging the landlord who's already owns that property, has already spent the money that needs spending on the property before I take it on. That's me leveraging, again, somebody else's property, somebody else's money, but doing it to a good standard. Yes, I will have to put some money into the property over the period of the contract, and that's just one of those things. But, and it's very important, you make sure that you're not putting it all up front, and maybe you're not getting your money back within the first 12 months, first 2 years. It's just not really good business sense in my eyes. It might be right for you, it's just not the way that I like to do things. So make sure you're leveraging finances. At number 5, we need to have patience. We need to be very patient when it comes to property. You'll build wealth over time with property. It can sometimes feel like a bit of a slow burner. Now you can speed this up, you can get momentum investing, there's all sorts of ways of doing it, but really you always want to be looking at the long game. You always want to be in it for the long game. If you're looking at controlling a property or taking a property on, you want to be looking at having it over a good amount of time. Rent-to-rent deals I do over 5 years, which means I get plenty of cash flow in that time. Gives me opportunities to invest into other properties to buy for myself. In which case then I can build that portfolio up. By the time I potentially have to give that property back, I should already have been able to replace it with my own portfolio. And that's what it's all about, okay? You are going to make a lot of money in property if you stick by these rules and if you follow them to the T. Why? Because it works. It's tried and tested. I haven't come up with these theories. I haven't come up with these methods. They've been around for hundreds of years, and so many people before us have made money, and so many people after us will make money. It's all about making sure that we get in the game, we take action, we do the right things, and we don't quit or give up. But we have to give it time. We have to be patient. If the market starts to drop and you can see your house price went up to 200, 300, 400,000 pounds, 2 million if you're down south, and all of a sudden it's dropped down quite substantially, don't panic. Don't jump ship. Let the amateurs panic. That's where we go in there and find a motivated seller and get a bargain. We need to make sure that our portfolio is leveraged in such a manner that it's safe. When the market drops, we can sit it out. We got the cash flow coming in from the rents, and we don't have to panic. And it's exactly the same if you're using creative strategies like rent to rent as well. Okay, we may not own the properties, but we don't want to be putting so much money in there. As I said in the last one, we want to make sure that we're taking good properties in good areas, we can fill them with tenants, and we can keep the cash flow coming in. And we're doing it for the long term. We don't look to do 6 months, 12 month contracts with a rent to rent. The beauty of that is you want a minimum of 3 years. I go for a 5-year contract every time. I don't go over 5, but I will renew it if everything's going well, and so will the landlord as well, because why wouldn't they? They're happy with what's going on. So at number 6, you want to make sure that you seek professional advice. I always say we need to be the property professional of our area. We do, but we don't have to wear every hat. We're not solicitors. We're not architects. We're not potentially planners. Now, those things you can get better at as you build up your knowledge, but seek professional advice. And if there's a certain strategy that you want to do and you're not 100% sure how to do it, but you've listened to the podcast, you've watched the YouTube videos, you've read the books, but there's still a lot of holes, a lot of pitfalls that you don't know about. Why? Because you don't know what you don't know. And this is where training can come into it. I'm not going to harp on about training loads here, but make sure that you're following somebody who is achieving and doing exactly what it is you want to do, and follow them. And if they have a course that shows you how to do it, buy the course and follow them. Do that, but make sure you do your due diligence. And you're not just going to buy some training and spend quite a bit of money on something like that, only to find yourself left with no support and on your own when you actually come to getting the deals and the nitty gritty. Make sure you surround yourself in a community of like-minded people, and that is what we do in any of the trainings that we offer. The Rent-to-Rent Business Builder and the Ultimate Serviced Accommodation Business Builder. Once you're in, you're in. You have our support. We help you with group coaching calls, online training that always gets updated if it needs to, and you're in a safe community that you never have to leave. You can always ask the questions that you want. Find the same for whatever strategy it is that you want to do. And if you're not sure who you can trust out there, do feel free to reach out to us at the Property Unleashed. And if we can point in the right direction and help you, and that very well may not be us, we will do so. I've invested thousands and thousands into my own knowledge, into my own training and learnings, as well as getting out there and learning in the field, learning the hard way, some may say. Yes, but equally with a network and a community of people around me to help and support me. And that is what I build up in my own trainings as well. So do check out thepropertyunleashed.com, where we have free tools and resources to help you with this. We have some masterclass trainings that are all free just to set you up for success and push you out there in the right manner. As well as a deal analyzing spreadsheet, I always say easy for you to say, that you can download so you can see whether you're doing good deals or not. And of course, we have the Property Unleashed podcast, the Property Unleashed YouTube channel, and we have a newsletter that goes out with helpful tips and advice. So I do try to put everything out there to just help people who are maybe starting out. Why? Because I've been there. I was that guy starting out, didn't have a clue, didn't know who to trust, didn't know which routes to go down, until I did, until I had that vision, until I invested in myself, got myself out there. I then spent a lot of money learning all of this, and I continue to invest in myself all the time because it's the best investment you'll make. But back to this, use architects, use planners. Don't be afraid to speak to solicitors. Yes, these people cost money. Okay, and as property investors, most of the time we want to try and save as much money or make as much money as possible. But actually, spending money on quality architects, on quality solicitors, on quality accountants, on tax accountancy, all of those sort of things will save you a fortune. It should actually help you make money in the long run. The more you spend, as long as it's with the right people and do your due diligence, ask for recommendations, the more potential you've got to earn and make over the long term. Okay, so make sure that whilst we are the property professionals in our area for what we're doing, we don't have to know every last thing, and we know who to speak to find out what it is we want to find out. And at number 7, really, it's just stay informed. You know, it's know what you're doing, know your area and everything, but stay informed. Make sure that you've subscribed to newsletters, that you're getting information. Don't just rely on the press. The press is all doom and gloom. All you're going to get from the press is really, this has gone down, this is bad, they've ripped this person off here, they haven't looked after this, look at this grotty property, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, because it sells, okay? Bad news sells. So make sure that you're registered to things like the NRLA, so you're up to date with what's happening with tenancies. Whether you manage your properties yourself or you get somebody else to do it, it's still great for you as the landlord to know what the law is, to know if there's any changes coming through. There's plenty of great property websites out there that you can subscribe to. You can get their newsletters. You can find out the information that's happening in your areas, okay? So make sure that you stay up to date with the latest legislations, the latest tenancy things, and make sure as well, if you're using a management agent, that they are up to date with this as well. Feel free to bring them up and say, you do realize the right to rent's changed. Have you updated your system? And they should say, yes, Mr. Fitzgerald, we have. Brilliant. You're on the ball. Great stuff. I'll leave you to it. Make sure that you are responsible for what you're doing. Now, whether you've got a rent-to-rent business or you own property, and maybe if you own property, you don't manage it because you don't want to do any of that, you do rent-to-rent, you probably are managing it. The buck stops with you at the end of the day. We can all say, well, the landlord, rent-to-rent, the landlord's responsibility, they should have had the license. If you're managing the property for the landlord on their behalf, it's your responsibility. I don't care whether it's in your contract or not. It's your moral obligation to make sure that those properties are safe for your customers, for your tenants. If you own the properties and you know it's safe because you're the landlord and you've seen the certificates, I would make sure, even if somebody else is managing it, are these certificates up to date? Chase them, okay? Have somebody, you don't necessarily have to be the person that chases them either. I have virtual assistants in my businesses that will chase people for things. And we have it on reminders. Now you may say, I've got somebody else managing it. I shouldn't have to do that. The buck stops with you. If anything major happens, okay, the letting agent might get a slap on the wrist, but as a homeowner, as a landlord, as the owner of the property, you really do stand the risk of getting a really good slap around the face, okay? Potentially losing the property, potentially even worse than that, ending up in jail. So make sure that you're on top of things. Whether you manage it yourself or whether you have somebody else managing it for you, you have to make sure that you've got your finger on the button, that you are the property professional there, and you know that the good job's being done. And don't be afraid to speak to the agents, as I say, and just double check that they are on top of things. But make sure you're up to date with these things, okay, with these compliances. Make it a bit of a hobby, an interest of yours. Oh, I got an email today. What's this? Oh, this is regarding Section 21's being abolished. Everybody's up in arms. Oh my God, Section 21's being abolished. I've never wanted to evict a tenant who's paying, who's looking after the property, who's not being a nuisance. We can still evict people who are being a nuisance, who aren't paying. We just have to have grounds to do so, okay? So it's safer for the tenant because realistically, what it stops is a landlord saying to themselves, I'm going to sell my property now, so I'm just going to evict a tenant. And now that tenant might have been there 5 years, never been a problem or anything. That's what it'll stop. So they'll have to wait for the end of an agreement before they can actually, ask the tenants to leave or serve them notice and things, unless they're a problem. And if they're a problem, we're still going to go through the same channels that we went through before. So don't panic too much about these things. That's all about being the property professional in your area. These are the 7 tips really to help you be a successful property investor. And I would say, if you actually choose to go down the property investing route, or maybe you've already started, whether it's rent to rent, you want to do purchase lease options, you want to do HMOs, service accommodation, commercial conversions, you want to do all sorts of things, developments. Oh, we haven't touched on developments, have we? Whether you want to do any of those, it's all got to be right for you. You've got to have a passion for it. And we all start with passion. We all start with drive. We all start with, I'm going to make this happen. I'm never going to give up. Trust me, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Hard work. Okay, anything worth doing is hard work. It's easy to say, but it is hard. Okay, I've worked really, really, really hard over the last, 4 years to get where I am now. You're going to have to do the same. It's not going to be given to you. It's very easy to look at Instagram or anything like that and say, woohoo, it's all right for them. Look at that, bought a property. 15 grand is all I had to find. I stuck 5 grand in it. Got a refurb done, sold it, made 30 grand. Boom. These are the keys, I'm handing them over. Brilliant stuff. Now, some people can do that, but don't believe everything you see and read. There's also a lot of hard work that goes into that, okay? If people are doing that, are they actually doing it? I'm not here to say whether they are or not. Cookie cutter and things, there's a lot of people doing very, very well. Why? Because they followed these rules. Not these specific rules, but rules very much the same as this to get themselves where they wanted to get themselves, okay? You can do the same. You just have to be ready to take action, to push yourself out there and to make sure that it happens. And if you do that, you will be onto a winner and you can completely change your life. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, like, follow, leave a 5-star review, leave a thumbs up, or reach out to me on social media. Facebook, Instagram, I'll never message you first, but feel free to message me and we can have a chat. And I don't sell Bitcoin, crypto, or anything like that either. So if somebody's reaching out to you with my face, that's not me. Okay, until the next time, I hope you have enjoyed this and I look forward to you joining me again soon. Take care and bye for now.